With Chainsaw Man Chapter 134, Fujimoto just took that Doctor Strange meme that things just got out of hand and he completely brought it to life because not only were our expectations subverted yet again, but he completely pulls the rug out from underneath us by revealing the identity of fake Chainsaw Man while simultaneously making us see Denji in a more sympathetic light by having him show a huge chunk of emotion that we haven't seen from him in a while. By the end of the chapter, Nayuta wasn't the only one thinking about giving Denji a hug because I almost jumped all the way through the screen to give the guy a hug myself. So with my initial thoughts out of the way, let's back things up and let's dive into the recap portion of the review. So the chapter opens up with Denji walking through the streets looking more out of it than normal, clearly in deep thought, and Fujimoto being the brilliant foreshadower that he is, has Denji looking at the TV as the conversation about Chainsaw Man is going on, which is brilliant given how the chapter ends off and we see the mask Denji's wearing begin to start coming fully off and reveal his true emotions by the end. As we progress through the next few scenes, you can gradually see the cracks in Denji's mask that he's wearing actually form as we peel back the layers to see his true emotions. Denji hears not only about how people are discussing what happened with the Eternity Devil at the aquarium, but also he's hearing people talk about the battle with the Falling Devil, and one of the last shots we get of Denji is him walking away with a close-up of his face, highlighting the dead but serious look in his eyes. We then shift over to Denji speaking with Nayuta, blow-drying her hair, and Nayuta is trying to get through to Denji, telling him to start paying closer attention because the people who are abusing the name of Chainsaw Man that are part of that cult are now attacking police officers. This is what leads us to Denji dropping the bombshell on us, which is that he declares he's no longer going to transform into Chainsaw Man ever again, which is why it doesn't matter what the church is actually doing because he'll never transform into Chainsaw Man, which leads to Nayuta looking disappointed, and Denji shows us that the growth that was hinted at in the last two chapters is absolutely legitimate because he tells Nayuta that he cannot transform into Chainsaw Man because if he does, that means Nayuta will be killed and it's not something that's worth it to him. Denji showed us that he has indeed truly learned what it means to have real love for someone, where when they depend on you and you love them enough that you'll sacrifice things that you enjoy just to make sure that they're happy and that the world's a better place for them. Denji refers to being told that he can't turn into Chainsaw Man again as being part of himself that actually dies, and it's a somber reflection of how far Denji has actually come and what it is that he's about to sacrifice. This leads to Nayuta asking Denji if he truly wants a normal life, and that's where we see that crafty Baka Fujimoto drop more foreshadowing on us by linking back to something we saw in part 1 of Chainsaw Man. While Nayuta is asleep, Denji is sitting on the toilet talking to Pochita, and when he says that they can be happy and live a normal life and that they don't need to keep on fighting anymore, Meowie shows up right when he says there's no reason to keep fighting, which is our red flag. Here's the thing, Pochita and Denji, they have that deal. Pochita wanted Denji to be happy and to live a normal life, but Meowie is his last connection to power, and Denji is supposed to find the reincarnated blood devil and befriend her like he promised to power. Having Meowie show up at that very moment when Denji was on the fence, Fujimoto's letting us know indirectly that while he's never referenced the blood devil in part 2 of Chainsaw Man, he hasn't forgotten about that plotline. If I'm not mistaken, this might be the first time in Chainsaw Man part 2 that Denji's ever directly said Meowie's name, which gives us further credence to what I was thinking about here. Now this also leads to Denji looking at the television, and we see the mask further crumble that Denji's wearing as he's watching the people speak and challenge the views of one of the followers of the Chainsaw Man cult, which we learn a few panels later is actually Isayume. They're saying that they're putting their lives in danger by going out to kill devils at night, and when Isayume says that, hey, you can just speak to Chainsaw Man yourselves if you want to, it leads to Denji making the what the hell is going on face that so many of us are making as the readers. Denji walks over to the phone like he's expecting a phone call, and Denji looks even more confused when Isayume says they can call Chainsaw Man to speak to him, which leads to the rug being pulled out from underneath us by having fake Chainsaw Man finally reveal himself in the story. Only we as the audience know that the man proclaiming to be Chainsaw Man is the fake Chainsaw Man, and he says that he's a devil-human hybrid and he gained the power to turn himself into Chainsaw Man during the battle with the Justice Devil. We then see fake Chainsaw Man give the virtuous reasons for why he's fighting, and we see Denji lose it at this point, saying that he's never fought for any of those those reasons that people just started calling him Chainsaw Man of their own accord, and we see the emotions swelling on Denji's face as a result of this, and we see this man in so much agony that Nayuta crawls out of the bed to rub this man's back and console him as Denji is getting broken down. Looks like it's now complete. We've consistently seen him being referred to as being less than human by so many characters throughout Chainsaw Man, and the irony of this chapter is that he's talking about becoming human and having a normal human life, all for the sake of keeping Nayuta alive. But when the identity of Chainsaw Man is taken away from him, something that Denji would have had to lose in order to keep Nayuta safe, is causing him so much pain as a result of it, which I think is desperately needed for his growth, because we're going to see the eventual true coming of age where Denji has the Chainsaw Man ego and the id of Denji. They're finally going to be balanced, but right now there's an imbalance because while Denji is losing something he would have had to lose already, he's not losing it on his turn. I don't think this will be the last time we see Denji turn into Chainsaw Man. Nayuta's likely going to push him back to that point, but it's got to be a journey to take Denji to the point where he turns into Chainsaw Man once again. So with the initial recap out of the way, let's back things up a little bit further and let's unpack more of what we got here. The conflict that Denji's feeling is definitely needed for the character, especially with so much a part 2 of Chainsaw Man being centered so heavily around Mitaka, which I'm in the minority. I enjoy what they're doing with Mitaka, but we needed a chapter like this to continue adding layers to Denji's character. And the reason why this chapter works so well is we have all that development that came from the first 11 volumes of Chainsaw Man's manga, where so much of the story was centered around Denji. The way that Denji was able to weigh what Yoshida told him about the effect that he's had on the world as Chainsaw Man against the information that he's seeing with how people are talking about him on television, it shows a level of that much needed critical thinking that we see going on in his mind without us actually having to be directly told that this is what he's doing. Right before he's shown taking care of Nayuta, the person who he's making this sacrifice for ultimately. Between that and the way that Denji finally cracked when he lost his identity of Chainsaw Man, right after he said he was okay with losing it, very great writing here. The other question we have to ask is, what bigger role does Fujimoto have for this information we have with the fake Chainsaw Man bringing the Justice Devil up, and what plans for Fami, and what will be the ultimate thing that Yoshida does now that there's someone else claiming to be Chainsaw Man, just given his reasoning for wanting Denji to stop being Chainsaw Man. It kind of feels like this would go against something that Yoshida was actually planning, but this is definitely something that Fami was accounting for. This has to be something that is handled directly by Yoshida, in my opinion. Just because Denji can't do anything, because if he does, say, transform into Chainsaw Man and confront the fake Chainsaw Man, then this means that Nayuta's dead, and this chapter makes it very ever so clear that Denji is suffering so much with Nayuta as it is. Fujimoto had Denji crying ugly tears in front of the little girl he's supposed to be raising, and as a man, crying ugly tears is the last thing you want someone who looks up to you for your strength to see you doing, because you want to project strength to those who are watching you. But it shows you just how far Fujimoto is tearing down Denji's character right now. We just have to see if this is the new bottom for him, or if there's actually more that we have to go through before we can start building his character back up, which is going to bring me to my chapter question, you guys. Is this rock bottom for Denji right now? While you think that over, click here to watch these other Chainsaw Man videos you see on the screen right now.